So candidate identification is handled in a bunch of different ways. We're in a test center. Generally, we take photo IDs of people and then we have them, sign a document and verify that they are themselves. And we just kind of take for granted that because we've taken a picture of that person, we can verify their face and photo with the person that's sitting in front of us. Remote proctoring can be a little different. While a lot of folks are doing it the same way, essentially we are using your camera, right, to verify that you are who you say you are. There are also lots of different measures to verify candidates as well. Some folks are using, there's keystroke matching that you can use, there's biometric data that you can collect. There are lots of different things that you can do. There's also paperwork verification that you can use. You can use some form of paperwork verification process. You can have people upload a photo ID along with some other sensitive piece of information that only they should have. You can also phone verify people. So there are all kinds of different ways that you can verify the identity of candidates. The challenges that occur in this space are that, although like it might be appealing to verify people biometrically, um, more and more our community and society doesn't really want that kind of data to be collected and put in a database somewhere. And so um, people don't want you storing their data. And not only do people not want you storing their data, but they want to have the right to delete their own data if you do store it. And so it creates an extra administrative process there, particularly if you want to, for instance, be able to save data, to be able to defend yourself, or to be able to present a defense at an appeals process, or if you want to, I mean, really in general, or if you want, or if you wanted, or if you had consented to use that data, as a part of your feedback model, you have to add in some administrative process essentially to allow people to delete their data and become anonymous if they so request that you do that. So if you are going to collect, and this applies to, it's not just biometric. I think that the conversations about collecting biometric data have been the hottest conversations, but I think it applies to, it applies to all data, right? There is a growing consensus that people just want to have more control over their data, even if they have to give up a certain amount of it to be verified for application to a certification or, some kind of a testing process. I suspect that this is going to also be a fast-moving space, because we don't necessarily have like a court case, or a lot of examples of people contesting these issues yet. And so there are going to be a lot of updates in this space as it grows and as we move along. Proctoring is where we have seen the most changes in our field more recently. Before 2020, and it was as a set standard, high stakes administration were processes were almost exclusively on-site processes with physical proctors. And then low stakes administration processes were almost exclusively, pretty much whatever they wanted to do, right? But if people wanted to do remote proctoring or online, it was something between medium and low stakes. It was a medium or low stakes environment where you'd be doing that thing. But more and more, right, especially after COVID, we're seeing not only that people want hybrid processes, but that people also want to be able to administer a high stakes exam remotely. Now, I think that this is an amazing opportunity, particularly for people with, I'll say, different ability levels. You know, we generally refer to them as people with disabilities. This is because our need to comply with the ADA, right, Americans with Disabilities Act. I think that the assessment center wasn't a huge restriction, you know, on our ability to be able to administer an assessment fairly, whatever fairly means, or equitably, whatever equitably means, for candidates who are of different ability levels. You know, and if anyone has an experience here to share, please jump in with that as well. But in the on-site test administration, it is always my greatest fear that someone will walk in or roll in with a need for some accommodation that I don't have a way to meet at that time. And I think it's a great hindrance. And I think that as a result, many people who could be capable of doing the job, but just wouldn't be able to be well accommodated on the test, end up just not applying, right? Or they end up just not pursuing that particular area of interest because that assessment process has been so restrictive. So that's one of the things that comes to mind when it comes to proctoring. And I encourage folks, even though there are, you know, many challenges, and it's still a fast-moving field, and we're still sort of trying to figure out what we agree on and what we don't agree on in this space. I want to encourage folks to continue to work on, you know, remote proctoring processes that can help create accessible spaces for people in your community that you might not have known existed. But in general, there are a couple of different types of proctoring. You've got your on-site test administration, where your candidates are coming into a physical assessment center space, and they are being watched by a physical person. And that person is watching people at a ratio on average of between like 20 to 100 in a classroom setting type style space. And then you have remote proctoring, where you have a physical proctor. The live version of this is where you have a live proctor who is actually watching those candidates on a Zoom call or on, you know, whatever kind of video format, and you're watching them take the test in real time. The ratio here is generally a little bit smaller. It's generally between 1 to 5 candidates that you'll be watching at one time. And proctors will have different controls in place. They usually will stop a candidate if they see them demonstrate a behavior that is not consistent with whatever their rules and guidelines are. So if they see a candidate, you know, looking down, looking away from the screen, or looking up or looking away from the screen for any reason, if they see people, you know, maybe walking past in your background, right, that could be a security breach. If they see you, I don't know, depending on how many cameras you have on you, because some of us have processes that have multiple cameras, you might have different angles where you can also see their actual hands on the keyboard. And so what you're watching might be different, right? They have to keep their hands on the desk. Their hands can't be underneath the desk or reaching for maybe a piece of paper underneath their chair or something like that. And then you can video record those candidates as well if you don't want to have that live proctor ratio, because it's generally a little bit more expensive. You can video record your candidates When you're video recording your candidates, you're going to have hours of audio to review, unless you use that AI proctored feature. Within that AI proctored feature, you are going to allow a computer to sort through some of that data for flags that you either identify or that the software identifies as flags. Some of the common stuff that your software is going to flag are some of the things that I mentioned. Again, you know, eye tracking, if your candidate is looking away from the screen, if people are walking by in the background, if there is audio, if there's any audio in some cases, or if there's audio that's out of place for whatever reason, your software will flag just the videos that have that demonstrate those behaviors, and so then you just have to review the videos that have been flagged.